afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. If you can, please hit that like, share, subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that notification bell if you can as well. If you're on Rumble, hit that like button, hit that Rumble button, and if you're watching us live right now on X, streaming across the globe, if you can, please repost this and share this out to your friends and even the low information group of friends that you have, because they clearly need to be informed, especially after the last few hours. So a lot has happened and transpired since Thursday, since the last time I was on. But obviously, let's get the 900-pound elephant out of the room here. Let's discuss this. So obviously, there was a big incident yesterday in New York City. It involves a few fatalities, but one in particular is an on-duty officer. So a gunman walks in, kills 4, including an active police officer. That police officer's name, by the way, is Didarul Islam from the 47th Precinct. He had over 4 years on. For all intents and purposes, was very good and outstanding at his job. Didn't bother anyone. Doesn't have anything of a malfeasance on his record. And here he is. And also, if you can, you go to Barstool Sports and you can buy the Back the Blue tee. Shout out to Dave Portnoy. All the proceeds will go to the family. So you could go and, if you want to help them out, because sincerely, they're going to need all the help they can after something like this. But so this person walks in, and I'll give you the name of the person. Shane D. Tamura from Las Vegas, who had a conceal and carry license from Las Vegas. He also recently was fired from a security job in Las Vegas. He's also a former running back. He played in the NFL, okay? So apparently he runs into 345 Park Avenue, which is a building that houses, okay, we're just going to give you a couple of things here. The Blackstone Group, which a lot of people made a big deal about. The Ruin Management Group, which also people made a big deal about. JP Morgan Chase, a couple other banks. But the main people that are there, which is what this gentleman was focused on, is the National Football League. Okay? So before I go into anything else about this case, and we're going to have Eric Dym on shortly to break this all down with us here. And there's the building, as you can tell. It's in the middle. It's on Park Avenue, I think 51st, 52nd Street. So I'm going to play 2 parts of this press conference from yesterday. First one is the illustrious mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. He had his initial diagnosis of the situation, and then we'll have Jessica Tisch. So let me play this. And for starters here, you can play it. For starters here, just look at John Schell and Kaz Dawdry standing around. Look at these. Look at this guy with his hands in his pocket. John Schell had hours to go get dressed and look like, look at the way he's dressed. Look at the way he is. And that buffoon Kaz Dawdry. What a disgrace.
This never gets easy. I always go back to the beginning of my role as mayor in Harlem Hospital, where Officer Mora and Rivera were assassinated. I remember watching their family members enter the hospital and a loud yell of, "No, God, please tell me it's not true." I thought about that today when the notification came over from the police commissioner that we had a number of shots fired and we're still unraveling what took place. And our hearts are heavy. 5 innocent people shot tonight. We lost 4 souls to another senseless act of gun violence. including a member of the New York City Police Department, Officer Islam. He served in the 47th Precinct. He was just 36 years old and a 3.5-year veteran of the department. He was doing what he does best, and all members of the police department carry out. He was saving lives. He was protecting New Yorkers. He's an immigrant from Bangladesh, and he loved this city. And everyone we spoke with stated he was a person of faith and a person that believed in God and believed in living out the life of a godly person. He embodies what this city is all about. He's a true blue New Yorker, not only in a uniform he wore, but in his spirit and energy of loving this city. And early tonight, I met with the officer's family. I told them that he was a hero, and we admire him for putting his life on the line. This was his dad's only son. I think about Jordan, my child, and it's unimaginable to experience a loss of this magnitude. And 3 of the innocent civilians are also dead. 2 males and 1 female, and another male is seriously injured, fighting for his life in critical condition because of the violent, despicable attack. Additionally, the shooter is dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. To be clear, 6 total tonight died, 1 including the perpetrator. And I'm sorry, 6 total was shot tonight, 1 including the perpetrator. No words can describe this act of evil, a man who takes a life.
Yeah, he said a couple other words there, but you heard what he was saying. And again, he's reading off a piece of paper. And also, why is this about him and his son? Why? He's done this every single time. He is really a despicable human being. But then there was a lot of conflicting reports, and we're going to get to that, mentioning that the shooter was Middle Eastern, and this has something to do with Zohran Mamdani, who's A, not in the country, B, he is running for mayor. He is not the mayor. And I'm not making any excuses for the guy, but his name is being thrown around all over the internet by these influencer crowd, these MAGA shills from outside of New York City. They don't even live within 1,000 miles of it. So then we get official clarification from Jessica Tisch. So let's hear Jessica Tisch part at this press conference, she's stating all the facts here, folks. No hyperbole. No, we think this is a Middle Eastern guy. So let's hear Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner.
Provide is preliminary and subject to change. At 6:28 p.m., the 911 call center started receiving multiple 911 calls for an active shooter inside of 345 Park Avenue at 52nd Street in Manhattan. What happened next is under an active investigation, and details are still coming in, but here's what we know so far. Surveillance video shows a male exit a double-parked black BMW on Park Avenue between 51st and 52nd Streets, carrying an M4 rifle in his right hand. He walks towards the building's entrance. That individual was seen exiting the BMW alone. The building's security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire. He makes his way to the elevator bank, where he shoots a security guard who was taking cover behind the security desk. 1 additional male is shot in the lobby, per his own statement from the hospital. The shooter then calls the elevator, which opens in the lobby. A female exits that elevator, and he allows her to walk past him unharmed. He goes up to the 33rd floor, which is route and management, and begins to walk the floor firing rounds as he traveled. One person was struck and killed on that floor. He then proceeds down a hallway and shoots himself in the chest. In total, we have 5 victims shot, our officer and 4 other innocent civilians, plus the shooter. The shooter is believed to be Shane Tamura, a 27-year-old male with a Las Vegas address. The vehicle he exited is registered in Nevada to Mr. Tamura. Inside of that vehicle, officers found a rifle case with rounds, a loaded revolver, ammunition, and magazines, a backpack, and medication prescribed to Mr. Tamura. The vehicle was searched by our bomb squad and found to be clear of any explosives. The initial investigation shows that Mr. Tamura's vehicle traveled cross-country through Colorado on July 26th, then Nebraska and Iowa on July 27th, and then in Columbia, New Jersey, as recently as 4:24 p.m. today. The vehicle entered New York City shortly thereafter. According to our law enforcement partners in Las Vegas, Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history. His motives are still under investigation, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location. 345 Park Avenue is a commercial office building whose tenants include the NFL, Rudin Management, KPMG, and Blackstone. At this time, 4 of the 5 victims are deceased, including our NYPD cop. Our officer was transported here to New York Presbyterian along with 1 male civilian, the lone shooting survivor, who is in critical but stable condition at this time. 2 other civilians, 1 male and 1 female, both deceased, were brought to Bellevue. The 4th civilian is a female who was found dead on the 33rd floor of the location. Additionally, there are 4 other victims being treated for minor injuries sustained in their attempts to flee the scene. Victims' names are being withheld at this time, pending family notification. Officers from our Special Operations Division are currently conducting a secondary sweep of the entire building. I want to be very clear. We believe this to be a lone shooter, and there is no longer an active threat to the public. But today, 4 innocent victims are dead. Among them is NYPD police officer Didarul Islam, 36 years old, 4 years on the job. Officer Islam was married with 2 young boys, and his wife is pregnant with their 3rd child. He's assigned to the 4-7 precinct in the Bronx. He was doing the job that we asked him to do. He put himself in harm's way. He made the ultimate sacrifice, shot in cold blood, wearing a uniform that stood for the promise that he made to this city. He died as he lived, a hero. I want to extend my profound sympathies to all of the victims and their families, and to the brave NYPD cops who today lost a brother. There are still many questions that we have to answer, and we will answer them. But for now, our city is in mourning for the innocent lives lost. May their memories be a blessing. Pat.
So there you have it. Police commissioner gave all the facts out. No, this gentleman did not come with some kind of terrorist intentions where it's like he's a jihadist. No, he wasn't shouting things coming into the door. The reports that you hear about that are not what they're saying. And look, here's Mamdani, what he said, okay? Right here. I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting in Midtown. I am holding the victims, their families, and the NYPD officer critical condition in my thoughts. Grateful for all of our first responders on the ground. Now, listen, you could say he's being disingenuous. You know, it's up to you what you think. But this guy is not a Mamdani supporter. He's not part of the Free Palestine movement. So I'm going to bring Eric Dym on because I figured this incident, we were talking when it happened right away. And some of the stuff that we saw online or discussed, this really disturbing and disgusting, and how there are people that are politicizing this more. Listen, this is exactly what they're explaining. There's no political motives. This guy lost his mind. He's probably got CTE damage. He discussed this in his note that he left behind. And he went there to go to the NFL. Okay, and he went to the wrong floor. It's in his note. Nothing to do with Mamdani, Islam. I mean, look, here's Laura Loomer. Look at the stuff that she's putting out. Cop killers love Zohran Mamdani. He's appealing to the cop killers for their vote. What does this have to do with the incident that occurred? This guy has nothing to do with Mamdani. Here, look, more from Laura Loomer. The suspect who just shot and possibly killed an NYPD officer in New York City is being described by witnesses as a Middle Eastern man with an AR-15 rifle. The trend of nominating, electing Muslims to run office in the U.S. is empowering Middle Eastern people and people who support the Free Palestine movement to kill cops. Where was this ever said? I didn't know an African-American gentleman is now Middle Eastern. I mean, you got to be kidding me. There's more from her. The cop killer in New York City who just killed an NYPD officer was a Mamdani supporter. He reportedly also supported the Free Palestine movement. Zohran Mamdani is inspiring a generation of pro-Islamic cop killers. None of this is verified, and it's not true. More from her. I don't care who this offends. I don't feel safe with Muslims holding office in America. Mamdani inspires cop killers and Islamic terrorists to wage war on the streets of America while screaming Free Palestine. I mean, what is this? More. Mamdani is in Uganda while supporters are killing cops in New York City tonight. Marco Rubio, don't let him back in the country. Do us a favor. He's a national security threat. And I mean, Marlon Bethel says it's best here. She's a disinformation agent. All she does is try to rifle up the vision. I mean, I can't believe when I'm reading. There's more. There's other people that we have, but I want to bring on Eric Dym because Eric, we were talking about this, Eric, and, I don't know. I want to get your thoughts before we show anything else. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, we've discussed at length about the CRC team that was disbanded, right? They would have been out there. We used to have counterterrorism. This is supposed to be like the stingiest and strictest gun laws and gun zones that Eric Adams put up. Yet a guy just walked around with an AR-15. So we have that issue. And then the politicization, they're politicized an officer's death. I can't stand when they do this. It has nothing to do with Mamdani. Nothing. This guy is not a Mamdani supporter. This is just pure fear-mongering and clickbait for some. It's really disgusting, Eric. I don't know. You take it away.
I just want to say this is such a somber moment at this point. I just want to take a moment of silence and reflect on the loss of our New Yorkers, including a fellow police officer who lost their lives tragically. With that being said, take a look at this T-shirt, by the way. Barstool Sports always, Dave Porty always has the back of police officers and shows great support.
Yeah.
All we have heard is conjecture. We have people clout chasing at the death of a police officer. And the irony and the paradox to that is that most of these people scream for defund the police or anti-police, have a complete disdain. But now, because the political dynamics align to support the death of a police officer, now all of a sudden they care about that there could be possible terrorism. And there were people jumping, just like Laura Loomer, jumping on social media to put out information as fast as possible to say that they were the first to put it out. And that's where we collectively set together in the Finance and Filter team. Let's take a seat back. Let's wait for the information to come in. Before we put information in, let's wait, allow the preliminary investigation to play out. While also, let's honor the death of New Yorkers, including one of our brothers, a fellow New York City police officer. Now, the part I find also extremely problematic that I don't like what I see right now is I see a lot of references that this police officer was off duty. And I have a hard time hearing that. This police officer was not off duty. For the most part, no police officer is ever off duty. 24/7, they're hyper vigilant because of the nature of police work. But this police officer was in uniform, working what is considered pay detail, which is doing quasi-type police work in an off-duty capacity, doing on-duty work. And the problem I also have with that is that no police officer should ever work alone in any capacity. We have said that time and time again. Whether it's doing security or anything like that, I don't know. We haven't heard all the details. I don't know where he was positioned at the door, of what his aerial view was, but it is a message to all the police officers out there. And if you're doing this pay detail, I never did a pay detail. I didn't like the idea of it. To me, it wasn't worth the money. You're out there alone. You're working in a bank. You don't have anyone to back you. You're the only eyes there. I never liked it. But if you are doing it, I understand it. You need money, right? It's with inflation, it's tough. But the question that Sal, you and I had posed is how did a subject carry a long rifle while the sun is still out in New York City and make it such a far distance and have the ability to surprise a New York City police officer, shoot him in the back, and then manage to travel into that building and shoot others? Excuse me. That's the part we need to discuss. And to me, that reflects the low manpower in New York City. It reflects also that we've retracted from intrusive police work, because immediately this subject double parked a BMW in New York City. That immediately should be a red flag. And I saw it my last year in policing with this post-George Floyd effect of not being intrusive and allowing double parked cars, allowing all these quality of life conditions that may be legal justification stops that could prevent a further crime. So things like that immediately stick in my head.
I'd say there's a couple of things that really stick out. Number one, like Marlon keeps saying in the chat, the guy has a psych history, broken home, unresolved childhood issues, including trauma and pharmaceutical addiction. Yeah, and these pharmaceutical companies are probably, behind some of these influences, we'll say, because you can't say that the guy was heavily medicated for a long time, and that doesn't have an effect on things. Also, he double parked the car, I believe, on 51st or 52nd Street in Park, which is right, a block away. I mean, does anyone not see a giant rifle, a long rifle, AR-15 in his hands? And it says here, look, Tomorrow was seen on surveillance footage exiting a black BMW shortly before 6:30 on Monday, carrying an assault rifle in his right hand. He wore sunglasses, a navy blazer, and a blue dress shirt as he walked into the building at 345 Park between 51st and 52nd Street. Tish said law enforcement partners in Las Vegas shared that Tamura had a documented history of mental health issues, and he appeared to have driven across the country in his BMW, which is registered to him in Nevada. And for a city that they kind of champion the fact that they're against guns and they're pro-gun free zones, which is what Eric Dym had. How does that even occur? And you know something, you touched up on it. We used to have counterterrorism in NYPD. We had CRC. I remember we used to call it CRC, like they had the overtime during the day. They would roam around the city, and you would see like 10, 12 cars running in a stack formation and then venture off and cover different sections. So, yes, I'm not saying two cops could save the situation here, but definitely when you're running around, and what was always a big thing with them? They wanted an appearance. Just your appearance there would thwart some of this stuff. And obviously, CRC has the heavy artillery. They're not even roaming around anymore because Eric Dym defunded that, okay, to fund the migrants, the real voting bloc that he likes, Eric Dym. So, and not to make this, people want to make this political, which it shouldn't be. Mamdani's not the mayor. Eric Adams is. This is Eric Adams, New York City, not Mamdani. Mamdani is a man of privilege. Guy is in Uganda getting his third wedding in a year, a third time he's doing his vows. He's got that kind of money that he could just fly and do whatever he wants. So people are not looking at this. Some, I'd say, some of those posts from Laura Loomer, there's other people, there's Tony, I don't know, you want to put some of the other people up, complete disinformation that was going on there. Tommy Loren, your favorite. Yeah, look at what she said. A reminder to New Yorkers that your potential future socialist mayor doesn't believe in having NYPD confront dangerous nut jobs. He wants to send social workers in instead, for sensitivity reasons. What the hell does that have to do with anything? What is she talking about? What is she talking about, Eric? I'm disgusted by this whole thing. A police officer is fallen, right? And they're making political talking points out of it. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting that they're trying to politicize it and self-promote themselves, right? Because that's what this is about. If they get involved in the conversation and put out conjecture, they self-promote themselves. We talk about self-images and self-promoting all the time. It's irresponsible. It's disgusting, insulting to the police officers. It's insulting to Officer Islam that lost his life. It's insulting to the other victims. It's insulting to every New Yorker. It's irresponsible. We should allow the police department to do their job and put out the proper information. All we know at this point is we have a note. And that note indicates possible CTE. Now, CTE is very serious. Excuse me. But at the same token, what I hear a lot also right now is the problem with the guns. And we need to stop attacking the guns. We need to find a solution for mental health and mental illness. That's what we need to find. Is how do we attack mental health and mental illness? Because a majority of these active shooter situations, there's a mental health and a mental illness component to it. It's not the guns. The guns can't pick themselves up. The guns can't walk into the building by themselves. Someone has to be behind that gun. The gun is not the problem. It's the person behind it with that mental health problem that hasn't been addressed. So clearly, it appears that this subject was crying out for help when it came to the NFL and did not get it. That's all we know at this point. It's just conjecture by that note. But these cloud chases are absolutely disgusting. So anyone that follows them in light of this tragic event needs to reconsider and unfollow these people that are politicizing this event and politicizing a tragic event that happened in New York City. This is absolutely disgusting. What we need, I want to address two comments here. So one, of course, is from our troll Juju. And he says, nothing could have stopped this. And the other one here is from Anthony DiMaggio, great friend to the podcast and our network. Says, I wonder if Islam ever saw it coming, if he ever had a chance. Now, that's a great question. That's why I always had a problem with these pay detail, these security locations, as an off-duty police officer in uniform. It's a location you may be unfamiliar with. And typically, when police officers work at these security locations, they don't have the time and they're not afforded a plan of what is the outlook? What is the layout of this location? What does the perimeter look like? What is your point of contact if you do need backup and you're in a situation until fellow police officers get there? What is the layout of that? So you are on your own. So that's a great question, Anthony DiMaggio. Did Officer Islam put himself in a position where he could see all potential threats coming in that building and out of that building? Did he see it coming? Obviously, he did not. But this is something that we need to discuss. And I can tell you this, and Sal, I know you probably agree with this. There is absolutely no training in the NYPD of how to conduct yourself in a pay detail situation, how you should operate, other than what training you have. And that's to wear your uniform and carry a radio. But right now, you can't just rely on that radio because manpower is so low. And the way that police officers are strategically located, they've been displaced to different locations to try to, it's almost like they're playing hot potato. It's almost like we're filling this bucket. We have holes all over the place where crime's happening, and we're just trying to patch these holes, and we can't. And when you chase crime, you get more crime. And that's one thing I always learned, and I would preach to my police officers. You can't chase shootings. A shooting happens in one location. You can't chase it and try to address it. Then you have a shooting in another location. You have to strategically put yourself in a position where you can prevent shootings. And this is a major problem. Did he see it coming? So that's, and going back to what Juju said, could this have been stopped? Maybe, maybe not. But that's why we have to give the illusion. The CRV that you referred to, critical response vehicles, it gave the appearance that the police department was in a position where they could stop everything. And sometimes appearance is more important than the actual product, because we only have so much manpower. And the fact that the manpower has been so diminished, this is a byproduct right here. It's sad and it's tragic. And it's the failures of this administration. All the failures lead back to Eric Adams.
I 100% agree with everything. I do wonder if Officer Islam had a chance, like, with this, because what do? This guy's an AR-15 pointing at you, and there's no training in the world that could tell you how to not only handle that by yourself and a paid detail of all things, And I know some paid details have two officers. They used to anyway, where you had two officers working at once, but I guess people got really cheap and stingy. So, again, I don't know the exact place he was guarding, because there's different things in the building. But actually, you look at 200, I believe, Wall Street and down in that area, there's a bank. You notice that there's federal officers standing outside that bank, right? That's for presence, to kind of try to deter someone like this to even try to come there. Because even to get in the building where there's even more officers, the officers are actually standing outside. They look nice. They look friendly. You don't want to mess with them. I think they have even higher powered pistols than the NYPD does. So that kind of theory, even though people say, oh, it looks scary, actually deters people like this gentleman here. Bad 999 to the podcast. I will be having espresso on you later. Says RIP to the MOS dropping in late, so unsure if addressed. Nearly all mass shootings are committed by perps on SSRI meds. Source equals legally at Med America. Paul has a YouTube channel and is an author. And no one's talking about it, but he was on meds. And this industry loves to heavily medicate people. And then when things like this happen, I mean, it's a little off. Chris Benoit, former WWE wrestler, he had CTE problems, his brain, all those years of wrestling. And then the guy literally murdered his whole family. He went crazy and he killed himself. And it was like a massacre in the house. And it was due to the meds, his brain, all that stuff. I don't know exactly what the story is here with this guy, with his brain. He was an NFL, well, he was a football player, but he clearly was on meds. And again, I don't know. I don't even know if there's nothing in the manual how to train for something like this. This is like an unforetold thing that could happen out of nowhere. And again, the presence, CRV, CRT. And I heard another thing too. I heard Curtis Lee, when I love Curtis. He was on WABC this morning. He was co-hosting Sid's show. Sid Rosenberg's not here. And he was on with John Katsimatidis, and he said he wants to bring in more cops because we're at 31,000. I think the number's even less than that officially on paper. And he wants to bring it back to the numbers of where David Dinkins was. David Dinkins, and one of the few things he did well, which was not really hit, it was a budget given to him by the government, was clean halls and all that. We had about 40,000 cops, which would be great, hiring more police. Of course, we don't know who we're going to hire because they have all kinds of problems with that stuff. But 40,000 cops. The real problem here is not the staff, 31,000 cops. When you disband units, it's mismanagement of the staff and misproportionate of how they're doing things. So Eric Adams wanted CRC gone. And what does he do? Where do those cops go? Oh, that's right. He's got a bunch of them fluffing Kaz Dodry and John Shell. Some that drive him, some that are just hanging around him. One guy was in the DCPI unit. There's 80 cops that were in that unit. What was that about? Why are you even in that unit? That's a unit that needs 2 cops, 3 cops at best, and a sergeant maybe. So You could use 31,000 cops, but if you have them all hiding at one police plaza in administrative roles, then you're right. You're going to be short-staffed. So you mismanage the staff, and then now you want to add more without even fixing that problem first. I don't agree with that. So, Curtis, you can do 31,000 cops. You just have to manage your administration, meaning where you're going to allocate them. And that's the biggest problem with Eric Adams. One of his biggest problems was he doesn't know how to allocate the staff. And he's always looking to hook up his boys, as you know, Eric. I mean, it's ridiculous what he does. And that's why we don't have a CRC team, which was needed here. If they were roaming around, their presence out there sometimes deters these lunatics, knowing they're going to have a problem because it's not going to be a walkover. They're going to be bullets flying right back at you. So, I mean, that's my take on this, Eric.
Well, I saw it myself. I saw a climatic change in the George Floyd riots and immediately thereafter where I said, oh, wow, we're giving the city back. And what I meant by that is, particularly working the South Bronx, right immediately after George Floyd, there were some blocks in the South Bronx where you couldn't even drive down because the entire block was succumbed by double parked cars on both sides because we lost all control. The neighborhood was now controlling the police department because it was this hands-off approach of not being intrusive at the low level because it was unfair and a disproportionate rate of engagement to black and brown people. And we see it now encompass the entire city. And that's why I say immediately that red flag of double parking your car on 52nd Street or whichever street it was there in a busy area, and that was not immediately addressed. And that to me is, could we have stopped this? I'm not sure. I don't know. But the point is, let's stop the next potential active shooter and not lose innocent lives, including a police officer. Is we need to get back to the foundation of intrusive police work on all levels. We have a city council trying to erode the police department and getting rid of the gang database. You have Jumaane Williams that pushed for the How Many Stops Act to document every stop, which retracts police officers from engaging people. But if we had police officers immediately address a double parked car, then they have stopped this event, this tragic event that we had. And it's things like this where police officers engage people on low-level violations, traffic infractions, and crimes that prevent bigger ones. Some people say it's broken windows. I say it's intrusive police work.
Yeah, intrusive police work is kind of gone. And the intrusive police work that we see today is like doing a car chase, which leads to a fatality, which then everyone's on the hook for because John Shell told them they could do it, but they can't do it by the patrol guy procedure. And then the city's left holding the bag, kind of like you're hearing right now with a certain case. So that kind of stuff, that's not intrusive policing. You got to be more like precise policing. You know, you got to be precise with what you're doing because that's how you stay out of these scenarios, we'll say. But one last thing with this is, again, I saw a lot of people. Benny Johnson, Mr. MAGA. This guy is a sycophant. I mean, he is one of the worst human beings on X, on media. He literally, as he was putting this up on his X yesterday, said the guy was Middle Eastern. He was trying to start with this stuff right here. Look, he says, breaking update, Manhattan shooting after shooter reported 345 Park Avenue. Suspect described as a Middle Eastern man wearing a bulletproof vest. No one's ever said he was Middle Eastern. They arrested somebody Middle Eastern or took him away because there were two people, I believe a female and someone else that were there or something. But you don't know what happened because, you know, there's investigative purposes. Maybe they did something. Maybe they were on the scene. They put their hands on cops. We don't know. They haven't said anything yet. But clearly, they checked his car. There was no bombs. This has nothing to do with what this narrative that they're trying to shape. The MAGA people, these low-life influencers, we'll say. And then the final one I saw up there was, again, Bootlicker. You know, John Shell's companion, Bootlicker News. He himself called this guy a terrorist. So he was out there propagating a narrative as well, Mr. Oren Levy. still hasn't fixed his breath or his teeth. But that guy propagating his own stuff online as well. And it's just, this is like the end of society if you follow these people. We could have said a lot of things and we held off, because just like we investigating things, sometimes it's better to be correct than it is to just be throwing things out there. You're sticking things on the wall and hoping something stick. You don't do that in something like this. It's very important. Public safety is the number one issue with anyone in any city. And what you saw yesterday with some people, some despicable human beings, was anything but that. More like clout chasing, more like narrative shaping, perception management. Maybe some are doing things that for personal gain. Maybe they're working for someone. I don't know. But I saw that, and there was plenty of these people that are doing this stuff. I mean, look, here's one last one. My Laura Loomer. The biggest gaslighting operation is taking place right now in New York City to usher in Sharia law under the guise of diversity and false promises of controlled rent. The media will do everything in their power to run cover for the Islamic takeover of our country. There is no group in our country with more protection and privilege than the Islamic community. They have people afraid to even identify them by their own identity. It's crazy that this gaslighting operation has been able to continue under a GOP-led government. It's a warning of what's to come. What that has to do with a member of service being killed yesterday, I don't know. I just want to throw out there that it's Eric Adams once again, and was the mayor. He also allowed, I guess she has a problem too with the call for prayer that Muslims do. Yeah, Eric Adams allowed that also. So this reinventing the wheel, and I haven't heard anything about who she wants for mayor herself, right? But she keeps throwing shade on Mamdani, but technically saying vote for Eric Adams. So she's falling in line with that whole thing. And we already saw Benny Johnson did it. We know the bootlicker loves Eric Adams. So it's a constant drumbeat, is ignore Eric Adams as the most incompetent human being to ever be mayor. Elect him anyway, because more of this will happen, but he'll save you from Mamdani, who was in Uganda, and none of his supporters had anything to do with what happened yesterday. I don't know what your take is, Eric.
Well, listen, these people that put out misinformation, they're bums. Even CNN was putting out misinformation. That's why no longer do people trust mainstream media. And you have to ask yourself, who are these media influencers out there? And you have to vet them, because people like Laura Loomer, I mean, she's a complete whack job. She's a nut job putting out this information. Allow the professionals, allow the NYPD to do an investigation and be transparent. Hold a press conference and give you the information that they have. But putting out this disinformation could cause mass rioting. It could cause further violence. It's irresponsible. Now, it appears to me, I don't have all the information, but it appears at the same time this was happening, there was some type of pro-Palestinian riot or protest that ended up in arrest. And I think people cross-referenced these two events, and it appears to be that way. So there's no indication of any jihad or terrorist action by this perpetrator other than mental illness at this point. So I think mental illness is a major factor that has to be addressed also by every law enforcement agency in this country. It's, we have to stop attacking the guns. We have Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, immediately attacks the guns, wants to put a ban on assault rifles.
Yep. Oh, what happened? Eric Starlink acting up? I think it is. He'll be right back, though. But look, I someone here, QCB said Sal could be worse. She could have called a black Asian male white. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? But actually now I was going to pivot to, we're talking about fair leadership, right? So fair leadership in New York City, right? Eric, you're back. I don't know if you want to, before I go into this, you want to finish what you were saying.
Yeah, I suppose the bottom line is these people are bums put on misinformation because it's politically charged, it self-promotes, it's self-serving, it's absolutely disgusting. I want to honor the loss of the life of a New York City police officer that was doing his job, that was on duty. The bottom line is he was wearing his uniform, and we need to honor him and honor the other victims, and we need to prevent mental health. Stop attacking these firearms. And I've been saying this for years also. We need to have the NYPD have more long firearms. This idea that just certain units have it or keep it at the precinct locked up, we need long firearms distributed, and police officers need to be trained with them, because we can't stop the guns. This idea to stop the guns is ridiculous, but we need to be in a position that we could actually combat those situations.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this too, before we move on to the next topic, but under a mayor, Curtis Lewa, he would have a lot more cops, not only out on the street, it'd be these units we're talking about. CRC would be back. Counterterrorism would be back. They're not there to scare people. They're there to prevent things. It's like preventive policing, where just your presence deters things. Curtis was big with that. Kind of like some of take what was good out of the Ray Kelly era and Bloomberg era and reapply that gingerly, we'll say, because obviously it's 10, 20 years later. But that's how I would approach this. And I believe if Curtis Lee was your mayor, incidents like this will not be occurring, because you will see so many cops out there that you have to think twice. Because with all this being said, the NYPD response was first class yesterday. But again, they have cops. Number one, we have cops going all over the place with this all-out stuff. So they're going out and doing this, going to different boroughs, we'll say. Oh, by the way, people that don't have their body camera for a second or forgot it, they're getting transferred for that. So this is the kind of stuff that's happening. And that's what would stop under Curtis Lewa. No more nitpicking. And here is Curtis Lewa. Police officer, Diderol Islam, gave his life protecting New Yorkers from danger. He represented the very best of our NYPD, brave, selfless, and committed to keeping us safe. My heart breaks for his family, his loved ones, and every officer in mourning today. We will never forget his sacrifice. We will honor his legacy forever. Well said, Curtis. And, from your lips to God's ears. And I really hope that you are the one to lead New York City. I think you're the only one that can lead New York City forward. A vote for Mamdani or Cuomo or Adams is, can New York City get worse? You bet, with those three people in charge, especially Eric Adams, who's in charge now. But before we go blaming Mamdani for anything, he's not even a sitting mayor. I have no idea why people did that yesterday, other than to clout chase. But then speaking of clout chase, and by the way, rest in peace, Officer Islam. And if you can, once again, Barstool Sports, get back the blue tee. It supports his family. All the proceeds go to the family, just so you know that. So with that being said, we talk about clout chasing. We had two guys standing at that press conference that had like the one absurdly clout chasing, Kaz Daughtry, but Chief of Department John Schell, there was a little issue that occurred on Thursday night into Friday morning. And I want to put up that article we had up. It was from the Daily News here. So John Schell was found to be taking money from Dr. Phil, pay for his expenses. You know, when all those Dr. Phil appearances for Mr. Schell and Kaz Daughtry on that show? Yeah. So they were paying him for his travel expenses, anywhere between $1,000, I think, or more for his expenses, which, okay, well, I understand that it might be technically legal. It is highly unethical, and it could be corrupt. So I had tweeted something out about this, and I had stated that, he took $1,000 apparently in expenses, which you could see in a campaign finance board or whatever, conflict of interest board. But I eventually filed an IAB complaint, okay, because of what he did. And what he did, well, I want to play you a little bit of what happened on Friday's roundtable on the Finest Unfiltered, because this man was absolutely unhinged on Thursday night, and I don't understand exactly why. But let me play this for you. That article came out about the Chief of Department, John Schell, okay? And then this guy late at night, where we all know that he's an inebriated buffoon, and that many of the NYPD can back this up, that he actually comes to work inebriated, goes on an unhinged, yet again, another unhinged rant where he's attacking myself, John, and Eric out of nowhere. And I just want this on record here to tell me, do you think any of those executives or the sheriff of Jacksonville would ever go on social media and start unprofessional rants like
not
this?
even close. You know, Sal, what's hysterical about that whole thing is I used to call him Fat Triple Neck, but now I got a new name for him. It's Johnny Hashtags. So if you go to John Shell's page, just check out his hashtags. You're fired, never going to be a captain. That's hilarious. And I'm sure today he woke up and was hitting the delete button, but that's okay. We got screenshots. Thank you, brother.
We found out that John Shell is a tax cheat recently and that he was still promoted even after that. And then, so you had posted this. Dr. Phil paid New York NYPD Chief of Department John Shell's travel expenses of at least $1,000 while he disciplined and transferred NYPD cops for not saluting Kaz Daughtry. So Shell's essentially getting paid to do a media hit, which is completely insane because he's doing the media hit as a member of the department, right? It's not like he's doing it as John Shell off duty. You know, I know he thinks that he's like a media guru now. I guess he kind of is. I mean, he's kissing Ruddy's ass. He's kissing Katzmatita's ass. Good for you. I mean, it ain't going to be me. So just wipe your face a little bit, John, like that. But you know, when you're doing it as an NYPD cop, it's literally the same thing as you responded to a 911 call, you handle the situation for a business owner, and then he gives you a little tip. Right? It's called a bribe. It's called official misconduct. There's a lot of things wrong with this. And then my other thing is when he traveled, did he bring a security detail? Because he certainly brings them everywhere. And it leaves those questions. What do you know about this, Sal? So you tweeted this, and I guess it was Thirsty Thursday yesterday. Happy hour started early, and John Shell starts just hashtagging at all of us, goes after Sal first, hashtag you're fired. He retweets what Sal put out. What do you know about that story?
Yeah, so first of all, you misspelled that. That shows you how I don't know how many he already pounded down before he started that one. And then he went on and started on with you and then Eric. The guy was unhinged. But this story, originally, I already had known this to come out because it's actually in his, at the end of the year, you have to file your finances and all the executives have to do it. So this was, you look at it, it is out there. So apparently he got paid for his travel expenses with Dr. Phil. And as you and we always discussed here, how the hell is this guy on all this media running around with the media thing with him and the deputy mayor of clout chasing, Kaz Daughtry? So this came out, and there's other questions here like the security detail coming with him. And then also it mentioned about the documentary. If you remember who said the documentary was coming out, it was Eric Dym right on this show many, 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 many months ago that told everyone there's a documentary coming out. And now we all know about Netflix. So they're getting paid to do this stuff. And as I had stated, there was going to be and this is alleged, we'll say so, nobody gets offended, that there was supposed to be a deputy commissioner of operations bureau. And in that bureau, there's a budget. And the budget for this media venture stuff was right there. And that's what they were aiming for. And John Shell and Kaz Daughtry were, the main people that were going to get all this money, wherever it is, involving the Deputy Commissioner of Operations Bureau. So that was the intent. And you're starting to see now, and this is what happens when you're at the end of a regime. Hate to tell you, John, I don't know if he's going to have a job by December 31st. Yeah, so that was what happened on Friday on the round table. But then right after that, I did write to Internal Affairs, and I'll tell you exactly what happened here. So I did put this up on X. I said, I have filed an NYPD Internal Affairs complaint against Chief of Department John Shell for attacking private citizens on social media in my case. I am a plaintiff in a pending case against the NYPD My attorney, Eric Sanders, who you've seen on the show plenty of times, has now motioned to court to seek to, well, he's going to motion to court. He intends to depose Mr. Shell. And here was a letter I wrote. I said, "Good afternoon, Chief of Department John M. Shell used his personal X account to attack private citizens, John McCarry, Eric Dym, and myself, who dare to criticize police misconduct and corruption, attempting to chill our First Amendment rights as we point to his continued corruption as the highest-ranking uniformed member of the service. This behavior is disgusting, unprofessional, and incompatible with public service. In my case, he is attacking someone who has a pending civil rights lawsuit, Greco versus New York. It's in the Eastern District, alleging I was terminated for exercising my First Amendment right to freedom of association. Yet here is the chief of department attempting to chill my First Amendment right to report on his misconduct and corruption, publicly ridiculing me on social media while the litigation is active. It potentially exposes Shell to personal liability under 42 U.S. Code 1983 and opens the city up to Manel liability for ratifying unconstitutional conduct by senior leadership. Mr. Shell was already found to have violated NYPD social media policies and quite possibly the Hatch Act, and continues to do so using his personal account for NYPD department purposes." And I referenced the NYC Gov DOI report that they had on Mr. Shell violating the Hatch Act. And then, of course, also I said that below I sent the excerpts and to IUB. So just so you understand, the reason it had to be done is there's current litigation. I know some Joe cops out there, it's hard to understand. It's like talking to Fred Flintstone. Sit you down and explain this to you because you've never been sued. You never sued anyone. So the term rat doesn't apply to civilians. That applies amongst people that are trying to hide some kind of criminal act. You call someone a rat for withholding information so that criminality can continue, which is something that occurred in New York City a lot in the last couple of years on Eric Adams. And by the way, Eric, when he says I hate rats, is a subliminal message. I don't know if people understand that yet. But the reason this had to be filed is because I have a case against Eric Adams. Wink, wink, Eric. So that's why you have to file these things, because when you go to court to try to depose Mr. Shell, you're going to have to show them that you did something. So you're filing a complaint, which technically the NYPD should have opened with the lawsuit, but they didn't. I don't know why. Internal Affairs does their own things, as we realized, we mentioned on his show and on his network. Internal Affairs has become, as Eric Dym says, selective affairs. Okay, so let me get Eric back, because I know he disappeared for a little bit. If Eric could come back on. Eric, I know you heard a lot about that complaint and what's going on, but the Joe cops don't realize how lawsuits work. It's all technicalities. It has nothing to do with rats. I don't even know what that term is with civilians. And the cops that are even saying that, I believe they work in the Bronx, so I wonder where they're partying all night long. So once again, Eric, what's your take on that?
Well, as I said, I renamed Internal Affairs Bureau the Selective Affairs Bureau. And I think it's starting to catch on, because it really is. It's selective, because there's 3 tiers in the NYPD. And I'm going to keep drilling this into when people start to say, you know what, the guy's right. Because tier 1, that's your upper echelon. That's your John Shells. Tier 2, that's your nepotism. And tier 3, that's your general population. And when it comes to the Selective Affairs Bureau, the only reason or any investigations are done is to put pressure and hammer the general population to deflect and detract from the upper echelon and from those that have ties of nepotism. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's disgusting. And the fact that there's cops giving you opposition and they find this polarizing, we should question what kind of cops they are, because we have the highest ranking uniformed member of the largest police department in the entire world that acted like a buffoon and a jackass on social media, not just embarrassing himself, but embarrassing the whole entire police department. And if he thinks the entire country doesn't look at the NYPD, he's completely mistaken. I travel right now. I'm freezing up because I'm in Alaska. I'm in the 49th state. And even people in Alaska, they're like, what is going on in that city? What is going on with that police department? Now, are they as delved in as we are? No. but they hear the grumblings, and they hear the scuttlebutt, and you can see the disdain, like, ugh. You know, in comparison to years ago, if you were traveling and you had a connection to New York City Police Department or New York City in any way, people were impressed, or at least they wanted to hear your story. Now, there's this connotation, the kind of stigma, like, wow, NYPD. And that's because of this failed, disgusting administration, especially John Shell, acting like a jackass on social media. It's embarrassing. Don't get me wrong, for me, it's hilarious. It's entertainment. I find it funny. But there's cops out there right now that are like, oh, that's great, he's doing that. No, it's not. If you think that's great, you have to ask yourself if you're actually looking at the bigger picture. And if you think that's great, you're a bum too.
Yeah, and there's nothing great about that, Eric. He's violating the Hatch Act yet again. He used his personal account, but you blurring the lines. He's using his personal account and he's referencing your arrest record, which means, is he popping his NYPD phone and saying, oh, let me run Eric Dym's arrest record? Because he can, you know. He's also referencing things about the NYPD on his personal account. He's the chief of department. He doesn't go on these shows as John Shell in a suit. He's John Shell, chief of department in uniform. So he's blurring the lines, trying to sidestep the fact that he's using his personal account as his department account. But one thing you can't do, Eric, is disparage someone and ridicule people that you're in direct litigation with. And as the highest ranking uniform member of the service, he has a problem because he did that to me. Now, all of this could be averted, but New York City continues to drag their feet. My case is now, it's going to go on 3 years next month. They have stalled, delayed everything you could think of. And I could tell you from some of the depositions they're already given, they don't understand what criminal association is. They can't define it. They can't define what knowingly is. And they think that some people, if you're in a picture with someone, that man is a criminal, therefore you're a criminal. But others that are pictured with other criminals, we need a little bit more than just a picture. So this is going to be some fireworks coming very soon in the courtroom. But this move, Eric, was done because of that. It's a technicality. I don't know if you know, Eric, when you're sued, the NYPD actually, whoever it is being sued has to automatically open up an internal affairs log. I know Joe Cott may not know this. It's actual fact. They're supposed to, but under Eric Adams, we don't know what's going on because it seems that they were too busy partying, too busy going on television, too busy doing anything but the job they're supposed to be doing. That's all these people up top, the majority of them. So the next thing we're going to move into is another member of the Crumbs crew. That's Scott Henderson, right? Deputy Chief Scott Henderson. So I want to put his thing up because over the weekend, his story hit, right? And I know you covered it, but here he is. Well, no, this is the walkout. This is not it. It's the other article. There's an article with him. The article that came out was that one of his subordinates, an officer in Brooklyn North, which he was a deputy chief of, she was able to put in for overtime slips from her home. Her mom was sick. She was home. They gave her 7 months of bereavement. And then the job says, well, that's illegal. But it was Scott Henderson who signed off on this. Scott Henderson did. He allowed for this to happen. So they modify her and want to destroy her. And I believe there's also allegations that he told her to say something else on her GO-15s, which is the investigation where Internal Affairs sits you down and questions you. So all of that was going on. And Scott Henderson's walking away free. I'm going to show you what's going to happen next with that. And it was a whole thing from Patrick Gordon saying, we don't have enough executives that are. So he's making it race-based, which is racist and not allowed in any government job. But apparently he's saying that we don't have enough black executives, which you just had over 4 years of them. And it just because they're all inept and corrupt, whoever he put in charge there, Eric Adams, they all fled the scene. That doesn't make things, oh, well, we didn't promote the right people. You're supposed to promote people based on merit, not on the color of their skin. Patrick Gordon doesn't know this. But by the way, Patrick Gordon, the head of the Guardians Association now, that organization ceased to be relevant the day Eric Sanders, who's my attorney, left as the president of that organization. So, and this is what he said here, and he's going into all these things. He says that the first black commanding officer of aviation was bounced because someone alleged he could have caused an accident. Not that he actually caused an accident, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. He hired his people. I'm not sure what that meant exactly by that. I do not know he took steps to diversify the unit. He sat in the wrong seat. He could have destroyed a helicopter. Not that he actually did, which is completely not the case. And this is Winston Faison, who's the CEO of aviation. We're about to get to that one. But first with this Henderson guy. So that was in the paper, in the Daily News, all of that. But then, Eric, we have all of this. And again, this is mirroring his mentor, Jeffrey Maddrey, who was allowing people to do overtime. Yet the only person that fell on a sword so far for all of that, Paul Saraceno. But who was a chief that was being told what to do. So then we have Scott Henderson with this incident. But there was one prior to that, because he should be terminated or suspended and terminated. When they talk about the community, Gabby Walls, who's black and a captain, she's an executive, has been sexually harassed by Mr. Henderson, Jeffrey Maddrey, and Kaz Dawdry for a long time. She had to go public. She filed a lawsuit. The city has yet to even answer that. Believe they're going to try to drag their feet with that like they do with everything else. And by the way, they're illegally representing them because on the GML 50K2, they cannot represent them. So right now they're representing Maddrey, which is insane, Henderson, and Kaz Dawdry in that, okay? But Scott Henderson, who in that was saying things to her, relaying messages to her, this guy's a creep. Yet he still had a job. So all of that was going on, by the way, for the last 3 years. And when you talk about the overtime and allowing that detective to stay home, yeah, he approves it. But who else has to approve that, Eric? Jeffrey Maddrey, the chief of department. He oversees all the boroughs. So again, none of them were held accountable. Scott Henderson's not going to be held accountable. And as you can tell, there's a walkout for this guy in 2 days somewhere planned in Brooklyn where the community send off. But where's the community for Gabby Walls? There is no accountability in this department. This man is a monster. He is Maddrey's monster, like Kaz Dawdry. Yet they're about to give this guy a send-off, despite the fact that Tish said that he cannot have one. And even John Schell said that. So I find this disturbing, Eric. I find this disgusting.
Let's examine this and let's peel back the layers because there's a lot to look at here. And, you know, just as I renamed Internal Affairs Bureau and now the Selective Affairs Bureau, I've also said, to me, this is a syndrome where it's okay to be corrupt as long as you look like me. And that I have a major problem. And that particularly and specifically comes from Patrick Gordon, the head of the NYPD Guardians Association. If any other fraternal organization, we haven't heard from the Hispanic Society, but if any fraternal organization, predominantly white, made the racist statements that we've heard from Patrick Gordon, they would have seen the arm of the disciplinary matrix. And in the disciplinary matrix, there is a section there considered hate speech. And if you utilize hate speech, that's immediate termination. And in my opinion, that is hate speech. It doesn't define the disciplinary matrix what hate speech is. But to me, racist bigotry statements gearing the NYPD towards racist ideology, that's hate speech. But it's okay if they look like me. Now, we've had prominent, fantastic black leaders in the history of the NYPD. And we're having failed black leaders right now at the upper echelon of the NYPD. Not because they're black. They happen to be black. But it's because they're connected to Eric Adams. These connections, these cronies have been appointed because of their relationship with Eric Adams. It just happens to be that they're black. It has nothing to do with them being black. So it's a blight on the amazing black leaders that we've had and the amazing black cops that we have right now within the NYPD because of these bums that we have at the upper echelon. That's what's going on here right now. We have allegation after allegation. And the problem also is something that we really need to step back and examine and make a change. And some say we'll never change. Well, you know what? The only way to make a change is by being the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And it's this podcast, network just like this, and the support of our friends and listeners, and we're now engaged together, that we could speak out. Because these chiefs have way too much access, they have way too much authority, and way too much power. And they're giving the store away. And then we have to ask ourselves, why did he give this female cop that benefit? Does he have a relationship? Is that a similar relation to Madry? We don't know. Because I highly doubt he would have given it to a male law enforcement officer in the NYPD, the same amenities. There's not a level playing field. But again, in the NYPD, if you're in a position right now where you're given full authority to do something, you have to question, you have to get a full disclosure, because God forbid something happens, you'll be left to dry. And these chiefs won't stand up for you and say, well, and take ownership, and I made that decision. Look at Terrell Anderson right now, the former commanding officer to the Candidate Assessment Division. He's now swimming on an island by himself because he's been left alone to hang and to become the scapegoat for allowing psych disqualifications to become police officers in the NYPD. He was not a lone wolf. There were executives that had oversight, but he's been left as a scapegoat. And that's what this job does. The Selective Affairs Bureau, along with the high-ranking chiefs, find scapegoats. So don't be a dummy and don't be a scapegoat.
Yeah, I agree. Marlon Bethel says it best. The good news is only 8 people showed up at One Police Plaza for Reverend McCall's protest for Anderson and Faison. That just shows you how people really think about that stuff. And to this point with everything, right? It's these people are not like even qualified for this position. It's that they're not even with Eric Adams. They're just corrupt people that you have to be in that circle. See, Gabby Walls is not in that circle because I see Juju in the comments. Juju, by the way, Gabby Walls, I know her whole family. She's black. What do you got to say about that, Juju? You got nothing to say. You just want to defend your crony friends with Eric Adams. But, dude, December 31st is coming, man. He's not going to be the mayor. I don't know what you're going to do when that happens, but the community isn't there for her. I don't know what the community send-off means. What does that mean? Is that like all the pastors or the law information people? Who's showing up to this thing? Who is showing up to this thing? Because the entire community hasn't been there for Gabby Walls. She's still an executive. She has over 20 years on. She has a phenomenal record. What about no accountability for her? She has not been able to get promoted. Patrick Gordon isn't coming out for her, right? Oh, it's Faison. Oh, it's Henderson. Oh, you're letting all these people go. He has a problem with Italians apparently too. But let's not forget about that one. He's worried about vowels being at the end of the name. The O. It's actually vowels, my friend. Vowels, not O's. So, the whole thing collapses on itself when we really look in and, like you said, peeling back the layers. And this Scott Henderson is a creep, and he should be terminated. He should have been terminated with these allegations from Gabby Walls alone. I mean, I'm sure that they were GO15. He told this detective, apparently, he was like, there's some kind of communications allegedly that says that he told her to say different things on their investigation in the interrogation on top of it. And no one knows, Eric. He approved that overtime and stuff for her. But you know who approves that on top of him? Jeffrey Madry. He's the chief of the department. And now John Schell. So those are the 2 people that need to fall on the sword, but let's not mention them. It's all someone else's fault. It's going to be the detective's fault.
I just want to say, and I've received so much opposition. I received hate for what I've been saying, and I'm still going to say it because I really believe it. Every chief on this job right now that has an active role in the NYPD is compromised.
Yep.
And John said it the other day. He said, you know what? The whole job is compromised at some level. And the same thing goes for the chiefs. At some level, they are all compromised. If you're in an active role, because we haven't had any chiefs band together. At some point, you have to say to yourself, are a couple of these chiefs going to band together and start a coalition and say, we're embarrassed by what's happening and we don't stand for this? And now I've been told, what are they supposed to do? If they speak out, their career gets destroyed. And I said, you know what? You're right. But sometimes you have to put yourself in front of a bullet, figuratively speaking, to actually stop the shooting. Figuratively speaking. Because the reason why I say that, no one stood up for Marlon Bethel. Yeah, your career might get destroyed, but his life was altered forever. No one stood up for Daniel Pantaleo. Rodney Harrison, if he would have stood up for Daniel Pantaleo, his career would have been destroyed, but Daniel Pantaleo's life was altered forever. No one stood up for Sal Greco. Your career might be destroyed, but his life was altered forever. No one stood up for John when he had to make a decision if he's going to continue with the NYPD or start a new life. No one stood up for Eric Dym when he had 8 administrative charges from an overzealous CCRB in 6 weeks. Yes, your careers may be destroyed, but our lives are altered forever. So let's balance and tip the scales. At some point, is anyone going to speak out? Because if not, I say silence is complicity.
I agree. A lot of these people are silent. Rob Lukash says the CA should lead the charge, ban the captains to deputy chiefs to make their voices heard. Marlon Bethel says, yeah, the CA and LBA should be outspoken about all this corruption. Joel Ramirez, all 3-star experiences involve compromises that everyone is aware of. Veronica Electron, be a whistleblower in New York and your life will be ruined. That's what happens. It is not even that. This is the biggest police law enforcement organization in the world. Look at the way it's being run. And look at if you are trying to do the right thing or you're a victim and you have proof and you have evidence, you have text messages, and look what they do to you. They smear you. They destroy you. I mean, look, John Shell did the other day. They smear you. They try to destroy you. But you know what happens when that? Because they can't argue the merits. So they use the ad hominem attacks. They don't have anything to say. They're wrong because where are they wrong? Gabby Walls is wrong. She's got evidence. She's got witnesses. And there's a lot more in that case that I'm not at liberty to discuss that's going to come out that's even more disturbing, that came from the very top with Jeffrey Madry. Scott Henderson's his right-hand man. It's his little wingman with everything. And this case with the detective, no one is discussing what needs to be said here. The approval of all these things, yes, Scott Henderson, who is the Brooklyn North chief, approves it. But for him to get approval, it has to go through the chief of department. So Jeffrey Madry and John Shell approved it. Whatever's going on there. But what are they doing? Attacking that woman who's about to retire. Because all she did, for whatever reason is, you could hate her all you want, she's doing what the chief told her to do and is allowing her to do. He knows what's right from wrong, but he did whatever he wanted anyway. Because why? His boys are in charge. We outside. Remember that one? We outside. So that's the little group, the Crumbs crew, the hashtags, all that stuff. But the last thing that I was going to put up with you is Faison. We mentioned him in aviation, right? Full disclosure, I know this guy. He was my captain too. I already recited the story when he let his brother out of the cell who was arrested to hang out in his office as an executive. Rather disturbing scene. But anyway, and he also came to crime scenes. Nobody knew who he was. He came with an Escalade, dark tints. His hat was like sideways. We looked at him and goes, who is this guy just gingerly walking into a crime scene, ripping tape? All that? Who is this guy? So a lot of cops were like, who the hell are you? I think one guy drew down on him. They saw his gun. His gun was showing. Yeah, he's kind of like Phil Banks, who used to do the same thing. So problem was with aviation, you heard what happened. It wasn't that he was flying low to deceive the FAA. Then he had apparently he told people to lie to investigators about when he crashed things. Then he hired people that were unqualified to be there in aviation. Okay. And this was first broken by John McCarry, then Executive Perspective. And then we touched up on again on Friday, right? And I gave you the FAA info. And actually, Marlon Bethel weeks ago mentioned this. So this was something we've all been on top of, right? But the New York Post wants to act like they just found out and it's only them as usual because they watch this show. Hi, New York Post. But let's put up that on a screen again. Okay. And here, look, before that, look at what it said here in the article. When FAA inspectors made a surprise visit to the base on July 16 because of internal complaints to the agency, Faison flipped his lid. And it says he's incompetent. I could tell you a lot of questionable things he did, but this is the order, finest message. Faison right there. He went to the pension section on the 25th of July. So that was right after our show. He went on there and he's on terminal leave until September 10th, 2026, and effectively retired on November 26, 2026, which means he could still be charged. He could still be suspended because there's a long ways from then till now. I don't know why he didn't take a lump sum. I find that odd. I believe Rob Lukash alluded to that when we spoke to him. I don't know what your take on that one is, Eric. I've heard what you said, but now we know for sure. He put in his papers, but yet he didn't take a lump sum. So he's still on the hook. Are they gonna investigate this guy? Are they gonna drag him in? Because Internal Affairs has been around, but we don't see a suspension of Winston Faison.
I think, again, Selective Affairs Bureau, I would put my money that they made a deal. Just go quietly, ride out your time, and if this thing blows over, you can come back, or if not, just ride off in the sunset and you'll get your pension. Just go quietly. Again, the Selective Affairs Bureau. That's why I'm saying I'm calling right now. I challenge the active chiefs in the NYPD. If you have an active role right now and you care about this job, and you care about the presence, and you care about it still being the GOAT of policing, form a coalition, just like Rob Lukash said. Team up with the CEA. Form a coalition so they don't stand for this. Because if not, what I'm being told, how can these chiefs do anything? Oh, they ruined their career. So if we saw every day in every precinct a chief decide, you know what, fire this guy, fire that guy, and they started firing people every day for no reason. No chief is going to speak up and say, I have a problem with this. Oh, because it's, oh, boo-hoo, let me cry a tear because it's going to ruin their career. When is there going to be a coalition of high-ranking chiefs to speak up? Because clearly we can't rely on the Internal Affairs Bureau. They've been hijacked. They're the Selective Affairs Bureau. There's zero trust. Police Commissioner Tisch has no power and authority. Your mayor can't be trusted. So at what point are we going to fight back? Yes, I'm going to be honest. If you have more than 20 years, I don't feel sorry for you. You have a nice pension you can get with your skills. If you're a chief in the NYPD, you should have acquired skills along the way that could find you another job. Mm-hmm. But your life might be changed. I'm sorry, your career might be changed, but there's lives altered forever. At some point, we have to stand up. But they're not going to. They're not going to. I'm tired of seeing it. Go ahead.
You see this, Eric? Joel Ramirez, you heard it here first. Another aviation scandal is brewing. Employees are being told to stay home so the chief can accumulate his hours. Where now you got cops getting jammed up. That's unbelievable, Eric. And Joel, shout out to Joel. He has a lot of things he said on this show. He's broken things in the comments, and he's also broken things, I believe, online and stuff. So that is unbelievable. I don't know, Eric, what do you got to say about that? Because it does seem that way because he's allowed to accumulate his hours right now by putting in his papers.
It's another thing I've been saying, right? I'm renaming everything in the NYPD. John Shell, no longer triple fat neck. He's Johnny Hashtags. Internal Affairs, Selective Affairs Bureau. You know? And you know what? Corruption's okay if they look like me. And lastly, the NYPD has a stat for everything. Forstat, Comstat, Narcostat, Domstat. It's time for Scandal Stat. They need to start taking the stats on how many scandals and what's happening with that scandal because it's scandal of the week. It's scandal after scandal. It has nothing to do with black and brown. It has to do with their connection of why they're appointed, why they're in that position. And it's because of the failure of the leadership by Eric Dym that allowed this disease and this cancer just to rip through the entire police department. And we need to, once Eric Dym is not reelected, we need a commission, and we need it fast.
I agree. And don't worry, Eric Dym showed up yesterday in his body armor and his bulletproof vest. I don't know if you saw that picture yesterday of him. He's on the scene. Don't worry. He's on his cell phone. I find that was almost like,
Sal, what's wrong? He's got 7 phones. Which phone?
Yeah, which one of his 7 phones was he on? Because he's running around. Well, Eric's on the scene. Something he never did as a police officer, as you know. Now, as the mayor, he's trying to make up for lost time. And there he is in his bulletproof vest and running around his cell phone trying to take charge of a scene where he has no idea how to handle anything. None. Having him there would scare me to death if I was a police officer. And I don't want to even see him there with his bulletproof vest. Like, you're the mayor. Go away. This is not your forte. We're going out. Here it is. There it is. Eric, look. There's Eric Adams on his phone on the scene. Here it is. We got this. You know, we outside. What?
Hey, Sal,
what would you
Sal,
say?
You think he's on the phone right now? Like, listen, guys, I'll be late to so, bro. I'll be late to Canto Fritos.
This guy on the scene. What a disgrace. We have real people. You have real people, unfortunately, that are leaders in this job, but they're being overshadowed by the executives who, like the most compromised group of people you could find in the NYPD or the executives right now. And they're calling the shots, and it's scary. It's really scary. Lampwick says, it sucks you don't know someone personally, but see who you and how they support and what their actual agenda really is and judge by their actions. That's what we like to do here. Their actions are horrific, and they treat people like garbage. That's the executive staff in the NYPD. I know you got to go, Eric, so I don't know if you want to give you a final take or anything before I have Jack come on with producer's take.
Yeah, this is absolutely disgusting. And again, there's no coalition right now by the active role chiefs in the NYPD, but there's a coalition here. It's the Finest Unfiltered Network, along with our friends and listeners that have engaged together. And we're now the support system for retired police officers to have a voice and speak out about the atrocities going on with the NYPD. Or if you're watching right now, if you work at another agency and your agency's been affected also, just as we see in many blue cities, we have to band together because we can't rely on this. I mean, we look back at World War II. How do we get to the point of having Nazis and having people follow a regime? That's what we have right now. People are just following along. Well, I can't speak up because if I speak up, my career is done. He can't speak up because then, his kid's on the job. Well, this guy can't speak up because his kid's getting on a job, and he needs to make detective in 18 months. It's all about self-promotion and paving the way for offspring and taking care of one another. So if you're on the job right now, here's my message. If you're offered a favor, something that could benefit you, don't take that favor right now because you owe someone and you'll never be able to speak out. So make your life on your own merit and don't get favors because you know what? That barter system will be brought up back in your face. Sal, as always, brother, I love you, man. Thank you so much for all you do. Finest Unfiltered Network. Marlon's on the chat right now. Thank you, brother. Rob, Ron, the whole Finest Unfiltered family. Jack's coming on. Jack, thanks for producing. I'll see you later, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
And rest in peace, Officer Islam. God bless you and God bless the entire men and women with their boots on the ground with no mission and no leadership. You still go out there and do the job. I'm impressed. Thank you. We don't speak out because we hate the NYPD. We love the NYPD. I just hate this version.
We want to change it from within. That's all it is. We're just trying to change it for the better. There goes Eric. Thank you, Eric, for coming on. It's wow, there's a lot going on here. So we're gonna have Jack come on. I know Jack's raring to go. Producer's take. I know you heard a lot there, and there was so much going on in the last 24 hours. So let it rip.
Yeah, so we'll start with kind of some NYPD clarification from the lawsuit side of things, and then we'll pivot into some NFL-related stuff. But I want to start with Mr. Paul Saraceno, because I've heard a lot of people saying that he's been railroaded and unfairly treated, how he's become Jeffrey Maddrey's scapegoat. Maybe there's merit to that part of things, but he's not totally innocent in any of this. So if I can show you guys the lawsuit in which he was named. And if you want to go to page 201, I believe it's the third paragraph down. here it says, by all accounts, defendant Saraceno's duties were to follow around Donlin throughout the day, which he did, and report Donlin's activities back to defendant Madry, and logically, of course, defendant Adams. So this small tidbit excerpt that I just showed you guys speaks to how part of Saraceno's responsibility was to shadow Tom Donlin, some of the lower level ranking people in the department, follow them around, and then report everything back to Jeffrey Madry and Eric Adams. He was essentially an internal spy. And when Tom Donlin tried to kind of confront him about it, Saraceno tried to play nice guy. And the allegations in that lawsuit against Saraceno get like extremely disturbing as well. So if they have any merit, he's clearly not innocent. But this part of the situation upset me the most. So Saraceno, he's in charge of overtime. He's in charge of overseeing the allocation of it, how the budget is being used in it. But somehow back in 2020, he was disciplined by the department for a misuse of time, straight or overtime. He made false statements in the system, and then he failed to submit reports. So, I mean, in the same way that I wouldn't go to the bartender at my local watering hole and ask him how to quit alcohol, we shouldn't have people who have clearly misused overtime overseeing the entire system. That was a recipe for disaster from day one. Number two, he was clearly like a pawn for all of these people. They knew that this guy was very gullible. He would do whatever anyone told him to do. And he created this cronyism type of environment that permeated One Police Plaza, and he was a very large part of it. You don't get named in federal lawsuits. You don't have a lengthy disciplinary record that involves your misuse of overtime personally without any of this. So Paul Saraceno was never railroaded. There's a reason also, by the way, that he's not talking to anyone right now. His phone's like been subpoenaed by the FBI. So everyone who's tried to reach out to him over the past month to say, oh, we know you didn't do anything wrong, like the FBI is probably seeing that too. And yeah, like he's not innocent in any of this. So I'm tired of people saying that he was the scapegoat and that he was innocent, because he clearly wasn't. For anyone who doesn't believe me, go and read the entire lawsuit. It's 251 pages. His name continuously pops up. I've spoken to numerous attorneys and people close to the situation who told me that he was very involved in a very heavily involved capacity. And I'm tired of hearing all this stuff about how he did nothing wrong, because that's clearly not true. And the evidence indicates otherwise.
Yeah, I think when we say he's a scapegoat, we're not saying that scapegoat is that he's the only guy that somehow was modified out of this whole thing. Yet Madry was allowed to walk away. Fedorov, his real chief of the office, his real XO of the office, nothing happened to him. You're not seeing anything happen to Chief of Personnel Benoit, who clearly knew about these telephone message transfers and also has to do a lot with the Anderson situation at the County Assessment Division. It's like all of these people, the only guy that's being held responsible is Paul Saraceno. Yet he's like a small, like a tiny little part of a huge network. And everyone else is like, nothing to see here, especially from the soccer mom, Jessica Tisch, who, I don't know what, I mean, corruption is flourishing underneath her. And does she have a real say? I don't know. Because from what you're seeing here, it's like the inmates run the asylum.
and the funniest part is that Saraceno has apparently tried to stake the claim that he was following lawful orders. So you can ignore the commissioner because everyone has conspired against him. But when Jeffrey Madry tells you to do something, you listen. And he was also listening. I didn't know this part until I read the full lawsuit 2 days ago and took a couple hours out of my day to do so. He was doing so on the premise that he was going to get a promotion as well. So that's part of the part of all of this too. Like he was being promised something for him, so he conspired against this paramilitary organization, which has this definitive structure, which prioritizes personal friendships over rank, over any of that stuff when it pertains to the hierarchy. And that was really bothersome to me about all this. Now, he's not the only person involved in the lawsuit who did something wrong. Sal, you do bring up a good point in that sense. But to sit here and say that the guy's innocent or that he didn't do anything wrong is a total falsehood.
No, I know he's definitely not innocent. He's not innocent, but he is. They're trying to make him a lot bigger all the corrupt people are trying to make it like he is like the mastermind of something that he is clearly a small like spoke in a wheel. That's what he really is. The real people that are spinning that wheel, the Madries, the Eric Adams, the John Shells, the Kaz Dodry. Nah, it's all Paul Saraceno. Like, that's the guy. It was his fault. But meanwhile, he's not even the highest ranking guy on the totem pole. That's the whole point. They made him into that. Is what they're trying to do now with other people, because what are they going to do? Scott Henderson, right? This guy approved the overtime for that detective and did all that stuff, and yet they're going after the detective. It's clearly him, Madry, and Shell that approved that stuff. He's the borough chief. It goes up. It goes up to the chief of department. They have meetings over this stuff. Madry didn't know anything. Shell doesn't know anything. No, he sat there and goes, do what you want. You know why? We're part of crumbs. Where's my crumbs? You know, or Banks running around saying, what are you going to do for me? The other one. What about me? The other guy saying that stuff about getting pardoned by the president. So this is what you have. You have an eclectic group of people running the city into the ground. And that's why you're seeing things that happen. It's the failed leadership in the police department, the failed leadership at city council, the failed leadership on Eric Adams, the state as a whole. And the only thing you could do is change things with your vote. But you have to be willing to vote too. I'd be voting for Curtis Lewa. I'd try to vote twice if he could. I mean, that's what you really need. And maybe you could start to begin to change things. Also, city council, a lot more Frank Moranos in city council. You have, it's just a mess. And that's why you have certain things. But you have to be willing to change. You got to be in it to win it. But these guys in the police department, man, what a disaster. What a disaster with the management there.
No, and Saraceno, come to think of it, he's kind of like the evil minion or henchman. He kind of looks like one too, right? Like with that grizzly, like kind of tight demeanor and the bald dome. Not taking a shot at people without hair or anything like that, but he kind of does give off that aura and vibe. But anyway, the NFL issued a statement this morning after the events that transpired yesterday, and I was a little bit alarmed by the paragraph here at the bottom where it says those based in New York should work remotely tomorrow. It is understandable if you prefer to take the day off. There will be increased security presence at 345 Park Avenue in the days and weeks to come. Every one of you is a valued member of the NFL family. We will get through it all together. And it is signed affectionately by Roger Goodell, who is the commissioner. What's most worrisome here is the total tone-deaf nature of this message. Like, yeah, we had a shooting at our building headquarters that was targeted at us. But no worries. Like, you can just come in tomorrow if you would like to. If you want to work remotely, you can do that too. But we're so nice that we'll also give you a day off if you're a little bit traumatized. Just one day off. Just Tuesday. You have to come back on Wednesday. The NFL has neglected CTE. All of the brain issues that have taken place in the league over the past couple of years in an egregiously disgusting manner. Back in 2015, which was a decade ago, the movie Concussion documents Dr. Bennett Amalu, who has found a lot of the revelations in CTE. It tells a troubling story of former Pittsburgh Steelers center Mike Webster and kind of the mental fallout he had with his family, ended up committing suicide in a truck all by himself. Like, brain injuries are not something to joke about. I saw earlier Tom Joyce brought up the name Junior Seau, who committed suicide in San Diego and then asked that his brain be donated to science. This is a very real issue that the NFL has faced for years. And by not even acknowledging that the suspect might have been dealing with brain injuries from his high school playing career, they kind of brushed this issue under the rug. Also disturbing and noteworthy here, the NFL season technically kicks off about 48 hours from now on Thursday with the preseason opening Hall of Fame game, which is played in Canton, Ohio. You have to imagine that part of the thought process is like, our season starting to begin soon. We don't want to have people focusing on the negative aspects of football, because it's no secret that the NFL is criminally negligent in terms of how they've handled brain injuries and CTE. And this is kind of another stark reminder of all of that. locally where we live in South Florida, there's been a very large case with this too, by the way, involving Tua Tagovailoa, who was allowed back on a field like 4 days after he was knocked out of a game at Paycom Stadium in Cincinnati. He had 3 concussions in the span of a couple months, and he was sidelined for the second half of last year, and now he's coming back. Like, the reason that Tua wants to continue playing is because he just signed this massive contract, which went into effect last year, that sees him getting paid $39 million a season, $212 million as a total contract valuation. Sal, this is a big issue at hand, like the negligence involved in concussions and brain injuries. And now in the context of a shooting that involved a former high school athlete, we're just going to like act like none of that happened before. It kind of makes me sick to my stomach as a football fan.
I'm with you. They're totally tone deaf. Marlon's making good points here because he said, would be nice if security was taken seriously before this. The NFL has more than enough to afford armed security, them and Blackstone. Samara Cohen says the NFL is not-profit. Marlon goes on to say, true, that and the prevalence of pharmaceuticals, which played a heavy role in what happened.
Yeah, I mean, just to briefly piggyback off that, I mean, anytime you see someone go into the injury tent and get evaluated for a concussion, they have an independent neurologist. Sometimes when people get injured, they go back to the locker room and they get an injection and they come right back on the field like nothing even happened. Like the NFL uses very strong pills, injections, medications to get their $1 million athletes right. And like you start to think about these things a little bit more when there's a tragedy like this.
I 100% agree, and I don't know why the NFL, like a lot of stuff. I can tell you, I pulled over some NFL players in the past, and these guys were telling me I don't qualify for their program where they chaperone like some of the players even retired, but they have a limit. And these guys have all kinds of issues later on in their life. You play a game where it's like Titans on the field, and then by the time you're 35, 40, all of a sudden, you're not walking the same. You're a little slow. Some of this stuff could lead to, I saw a couple of people had glioblastoma. That took the lives of not only my father, my nephew, Eric's son. This is things that are occurring because they're playing football, and the NFL does not take care of their own. And this yesterday was a disgrace. And if that is their answer, I don't know. They're completely tone deaf. And of course, the show goes on. They'll be up in 48 hours. So I'm sure the NFL will be like, it happened. But things like this happen every day. Apparently, that's how I see them talking about it.
They happen, but they don't feel the need to address all of the safety concerns they have. They only feel like they have to do something if a player goes out and kills themselves, or there's suspicion that they're not following the right protocol. Remember that happened a couple years ago. That's why they have an independent neurologist going with the team doctors. Now, there were concerns that the team doctors were not being honest. I've spoken to a lot of ex-players that played in the 2000s who said that was a persistent issue as well. So there's not enough governance in football when it comes to injuries. And the first person that came to mind when all of this took place was a familiar face to you and I, Sal, the great Tony Saragusa, the Goose,
yep,
who pretty much dropped dead and died about 2 years ago at his house in New Jersey. It's like these people, once they're dead and gone for a little while, we forget about what took place with them, and then we don't do anything to mitigate the problems that led to their death. And that's happened with Jacoby Jones. Demaryius Thomas had like a brain injury that like caused him to suffer an aneurysm, and he fell down and died at like 33 years old. So the NFL, I mean, when there's a shooting like this, an act of mass violence, you would expect them to come out and say, we're addressing CTE aggressively. We want to know what happened. We want to start a program with college and high school athletes to wear bigger helmets or anything to try and like at least talk about this. But you see none of the above from Roger Goodell. And it really pisses me off because it shows how negligent he is in all this. I mean, he's sitting at his house in Westchester getting paid $60 million a year, which is more than Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady when he played. Yet he doesn't feel like he has to talk about anything that doesn't really fit into their agenda. He's probably getting ready to get on a plane to go to Canton and forget about all this anyways. Totally ridiculous, in my opinion.
And by the way, there's some guy walking around with a rifle in the 44th precinct in the Bronx. Just so you, right now, breaking news: someone walking around in the 44th precinct with a rifle. What can I say? The sickness continues, you know. And for those, I saw what was his name here, Leroy Jenkins. He's a good guy in the chat, but he always says things like he's talking about paid detail. You have to have paid detail. It's just that I don't know what happened here in this situation. A 9mm and the body armor you have cannot have the firepower of an AR-15, nor can your body armor stop that. Only a military grade body armor can stop that, and that would be at a completely different level. And that's something that you would never think would happen domestically. So it's just, I think it's a freak thing that this guy did this, or whatever plan it was. It happens, unfortunately. But with the certain units, if they were still around, I think the deterrence out of seeing NYPD vehicles flying around, or cops running around, or the cops with the long rifles like we had with counterterrorism, that would deter certain people like this individual from saying, you know, if I do this, it may not be a walk in the park because I'm going to get killed or whatever in the process. So that was taken away because Eric Adams defunded the police just like he promised. But some of these people still want to make this about Zohran Mamdani.
Which is totally ridiculous. I was going to respond to that comment, but because we have breaking news, I'm not going to do so. So this is a photo that was just released from the 4-5 of the suspect who's walking around with a gun. So we would urge anyone who may recognize his bandana, hat, backpack, physique, whatever it may be, to contact the authorities. This is breaking from just a couple minutes ago, too. So this is a pretty recent photo, and hopefully they're able to apprehend this individual. It's clearly an issue, whether it be in the Bronx, Midtown, Brooklyn. Not enough cops on the street, because if there are enough cops on foot posts, they're going to be noticing someone walking around with a huge AR-15, AK-47, big gun. Like, it's clearly noticeable, and you just wonder how much the staffing shortage is impacting everything. If we had more cops, would they have been able to apprehend the guy from yesterday, or the individual who's now walking around in the Bronx who seems inclined to harm people as well? This is clearly a big issue.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to say this. Thanks for your take there, Jack. There's clearly a problem in society. People doing this, running around with rifles and whatever, these big, long guns. I can understand you're in your property, protecting yourself, but these guys are truly, you know, they're up to no good. I don't know, like, I mean, I pray for the men and women of the police department. That's the rank and file. Those people up top, I don't know what you're doing other than running around doing things. Hey, Juju says something relevant for once. He said that's a copycat. You know what? I hope that there aren't any copycats out of this situation, and we don't have people going online saying that that's a Mamdani supporter and it's all about Islam. Because let me tell you something. If he becomes the mayor, look at yourselves in the mirror that keep saying, I kept telling people, no ad hominem attacks. Don't attack people's religion. That's like saying everyone who's Muslim is guilty of what happened yesterday. Oh, by the way, the guy's not Muslim, man. Nothing to do with that. Like, you're showing your true colors. And some people just sometimes put a sock in that mouth because it's very dirty. That's the best way to describe it. I want to say this, too. Tonight, we're going to have Mike King of the Profiling Evil podcast. We'll be on the 10-4 Tavern with Tom Joyce and Peter Forcelli. So check that out, 7 p.m. tonight, right here on the Finest Unfiltered Network. Also in the morning, John and Eric will be back on the Finest Unfiltered. I don't know exactly who the guest will be, Usually Wednesdays they have that. And of course, Executive Perspective will be on tomorrow at 17:05, 5:05 Eastern. And I'm sure they'll be discussing a lot of this. And I hope this guy gets apprehended running around with his rifle, because it's just, I hate to say, like, oh, we're living in New York City. You're going to hear a lot about that now. And it's society. It's a society problem, you know. And again, my heart goes out to Officer Islam and his family. I'll pray for your family. You know, he's got another kid on the way. He has 2 children. He's supposed to have another one. And, what do you do? But pray for his family. Try to support them as much as you can. So if you can, do go to Barstool Sports and get that T-shirt. Make sure I know that. The Back to Blue Tee. That's what they're calling it. Dave Portnoy sends all the proceeds to the family. And you got to pray for this nation. And just pray that sanity comes back. That people stop acting irrational like this. You can't be complacent, you know. Be very vigilant out there. It was one of the things I did as a cop, you know. Stay vigilant. There's the shirt that will honor Officer Islam, and all the proceeds will go to his family. So if you can, go to Barstool Sports and check that out. And, I hate to end the show on something like this, but really, you got people running around with rifles right now. I mean, what's going on in New York City, man? This is crazy. And it's in the Bronx. So pray for this nation. And anyone out there, if you're working, all the rank and file, make sure you have your partner with you at all times, and make sure you keep your eyes open. And I hope there's a return of the CRC team, and they invest in counterterrorism again, because our city was a lot safer when there was just cops running around with their lights on and stopping and staying in front of certain locations, because that deterred crime, didn't it? You can just go back and look at the numbers. Don't be gaslit by the soccer mom and the mayor. Crime is certainly not down, because people are emboldened and brazen enough to walk around with long rifles. Crime's not down, okay? So I'm going to pray for you in New York City. And if anything you learn, you need to change for the better. And I would, if I was you personally, I would vote for Curtis Lewa, because this would all end. So thank you for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for all the comments, even some of the haters. Once again, we're going to pray for the family of Officer Islam, gone too soon. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off from South Florida. We'll hear the illustrious mayor of New York's wonderful words. His great leader, all-time leader, Eric Dym. So I'm signing off from South Florida, which, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people.
So this is a biblical moment. You know, when Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?